doing today? Welcome into Player Profiler today. My name is Tyler Knably at PPR Tyler on Twitter. And today we'll be breaking down my my ranking list of the top starting quarterbacks in the NFL. This list does not include rookies. It didn't feel right to put them on there. They haven't played any snaps yet in the NFL. So this is just pretty much the starters we project going into the season. Some hot takes on here. I don't know. It gets really hard when you start ranking these guys because you got to do a lot of nitpicking, and it was a very interesting exercise, very hard exercise. So we're gonna dive into all of that right after this. All right, we are back, and let's just start right off the bat here. So I broke these down into 4 different tiers. I have my elite dudes, very good starters. I'll talk about that when we get there. Average quarterbacks, and then the last tier I have listed is Dairy Queen. It's very mean to say Dairy Queen, but I just put it there because I thought it was funny. Not actually like I'll just spoil it right now. Gardner Minshew's on that list. I don't think he should be working at Dairy Queen. I actually think he might be pretty good this year, for some fantasy implications. Might lead Devontae Adams to a pretty nice season. That's neither here nor there. This is not really a fantasy kind of this is not a fantasy list. This is like real life quarterbacks. Like, I'm starting my team. I need to win a game, right? I need to win a game for the Super Bowl. These are the quarterbacks that I would want to have on my team, maybe throughout a playoff run, whatever. That kind of like real NFL skill ability type of stuff. So this is not a fantasy ranking list, more of a real life type of thing. So let's just dive into it right here. I mean, no surprises right up top. We got Patrick Mahomes at number 1. He's been to all these Super Bowls in the past, 6 to 8 years. He's just that guy, multiple MVPs. And I just don't see how you don't put him at 1, right? It's any list with Mahomes not at 1 is not a list you should ever take credible. It's just that nobody wins more than Mahomes. And especially when we saw what he did last year, he just proved that he can do more with less. His number 1 wide receiver was Rashee Rice. And then after that, you got MVS, Kadarius Toney, who didn't even play in the Super Bowl, Justin Watson, Noah Gray, Travis Kelce. You got Kelce, but Kelce's not in the prime of his career right now. I know he went out from the Super Bowl, but you know what I'm trying to say. Patrick Mahomes is number 1. I don't think that's a very controversial statement. So let's just move on to number 2. Now, this is where the list really starts. I think it's a toss-up, maybe. Who do you like between Allen and Burrow? I went with Josh Allen. Yes, he doesn't really have the winning resume, but he just ran up against Mahomes in the playoffs. So I think that has a part to do with it. He just keeps getting knocked out by the number 1 guy on this list. So Josh Allen is at number 2. And I think you just look at, I think Joe Burrow's a better pocket passer, a better decision maker with the ball. But I think when Josh Allen plays his best game, he just has a ceiling that Joe Burrow can't access because of the stature, the rushing ability, the big arm. Like, he just can do things that Joe Burrow can't do on a field. I think Joe Burrow is a little bit more consistent, but Josh Allen I think you could argue that his best game could maybe even be better than Patrick Mahomes because of the rushing upside. When he has his best games, he just looks like the best quarterback in the league. So Josh Allen is at number 2 on this list. And now we go to Burrow. Burrow's struggled to stay healthy last year, so I don't want to let recency bias kind of creep in. But the second year as a starter, man, Joe Burrow went to the Super Bowl. No one really talks about that, and I think it's really impressive that he just did that, honestly. And he's just a really, really, really fun player. And how can you hate Joe Burrow? He's Joe Cool. He's just a really good pocket passing quarterback. I think if you're ranking just pure passers, Joe Burrow is in that tier with Mahomes. He's excellent in the pocket, can move around a little bit too. I think after the ACL injury, a couple of years removed from it, I think we've seen some more rushing from Joe Burrow in recent years. But last year is, it's kind of a throwaway year. We've seen some of the greats get injured and be out for the entire year. We saw it happen to Brady. We saw it happen to some other guys, but I just I don't think I could have Lamar Jackson above Joe Burrow. And Lamar Jackson checks in at number 4 on this list, reigning MVP, 2-time MVP for that matter. And, AFC Championship game lost to Mahomes last year. Sometimes it doesn't look great with Lamar. The offense is really catered around him. Hasn't always had the best weapons, though. I think in his defense, there's that piece of it where he hasn't really had the weapons that Mahomes has had in his career, or Josh Allen or Burrow have had in his career. You know, he has Mark Andrews, he had rookie year Zay Flowers, but other than that, he really hasn't had much to work with in his career. So I'd like to see kind of what that looks like if they can get some more weapons in for Lamar Jackson, like a true number one wide receiver. We haven't really seen him play with a true number one. Like the closest thing is Mark Andrews, but I think you're always going to be limited what you can do offensively when your best pass catching option is a tight end. Like, yeah, it's nice. Mark Andrews is a great player. Not taking anything away from Mark Andrews, but I think it does change the game when you have these, you know, these game wrecking X body type receivers like a JJ, like a AJ Brown, like a Jamar Chase, right? I think it truly does matter for quarterbacks, you know, overall stats and development. So the fact that Lamar Jackson's already won 2 MVPs with the supporting cast that he has, AFC Championship game appearance this year, I put him at 4, and I don't think. I don't know how you can put him any lower. Now at 5, we have CJ Stroud. Now this is controversial because he was a rookie last year, won a playoff game in his first start, and I think a lot of people may have Justin Herbert higher than Stroud. Justin Herbert has not won a playoff game in his career. Justin Herbert has not won a playoff game, and I believe the only playoff appearance that he had was the game against Jacksonville. They blew like a 27-point lead or 21 point. I forget exactly what number it was, but he's just not great. And again, Justin Herbert's not had a lot of help in terms of the organization. It feels like, you know, the defense has always been kind of meh under Brandon Staley. Hopefully that changes this year. It's going to be a completely different look. But, you know, he's had weapons. He's had Mike Williams when he's been healthy, Keenan Allen when he's been healthy. He had Eckler in his prime there for a couple of years. I just think, when do we really start, you know, shifting some of this blame toward Justin Herbert? I think it has to start at least this year, man. If they don't make the playoffs this year, like, he's got to carry some of that blame as maybe just a really fun talent, great arm. But I don't know. I think at one point we really have to kind of put it on him. But right now, I think you just have to have Stroud over him. I mean, you see what Stroud did with all these weapons last year. Won a playoff game, not the best defense in the world, like, and they killed Cleveland in that playoff game at home, man. Like, I don't know. I think you just got to have Stroud at number 5. Like, if I'm going into a game I need to win, I would love to have CJ Stroud on my team. So it feels crazy to have Stroud as a top 5 QB, but who are you putting over him? Like I said, I just made the case for why I have him over Herbert. And then Jalen Hurts, the next guy on our list, I don't know, man. He just feels like he's not as good of a passer. Like, when things break down, I think, you know, Shane Steichen his offense may have really been QB friendly. And outside of the Shane Steichen offense, we have not seen really like game-wrecking ability from Jalen Hurts, especially last year. Like, there was times last year where, like, the offense looked absolutely horrendous. They lose to Seattle on that Sunday or Monday night game. They lose to Arizona. Lose to the Jets. Like, a lot of bad losses last year for Jalen Hurts. So I still consider him in this elite tier. You know, he went to a Super Bowl, flirted with the MVP conversation a little bit as well. But I don't know how you put Hurts above Stroud or Herbert above Stroud. I think I even think you can make a case that Stroud could be above Lamar, but I'm not going to do that on this show. But yeah, these are my elite dudes. So this is the first tier of guys. So now we're going to move down to the next tier that I have listed as very good starters. And I did good because there's kind of 2 tiers in here, honestly. Like, I think after like Kyler, like me, it's hard to this is a really hard tier to rank, because it's a lot of guys who really haven't won a ton, or at least won recently. So you really have to start nitpicking when it comes to these guys. And for that reason, and this might be unpopular, man, but if I'm going into this season with a quarterback and I need to win games and I want to win a playoff game, win a Super Bowl, I'm going with Matt Stafford, man. This guy is severely underrated in terms of quarterbacks in the league right now. He goes off underdog as like the QB 21, I believe, or QB 20, something like that. Like, Matt Stafford still slings the ball. He was great last year, man. That offense was awesome with Puka and Cooper Kupp. You know, obviously he benefits from Sean McVay, but we've seen him do it in Detroit when he didn't have Sean McVay. So you like, Matt Stafford is a really, 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 by pretty much putting the team on his back, more or less. I mean, Darrell Henderson was involved in that Super Bowl, right? Some other guys in there, but I truly think that Matthew Stafford is just one of those guys that I think I'd want to have on my team if I need to win a Super Bowl. Like, he's won more than all the other guys on this list, not named Aaron Rodgers. That's why I have him at 8, because I think at the end of the day, winning matters when you're a starting QB in the league. And Matthew Stafford's won more than Kirk. He's won more than Dak. Rodgers hasn't won in a long time which is why and coming up post Achilles, I don't know how I feel about that. So Rodgers was another difficult player to rank, but let's go to Kirk at 9. I just feel like Kirk, it was really between Kirk and Dak. It was like the tier that I had trouble ranking was these 4 guys right here: Kirk, Dak, Rodgers, and Love, because you can make a case for all of them. So I'm not gonna sit here and bash you because you're maybe 14, like 8 through 17. I think you can make a case for any of these guys to really be one of the top guys of this tier at least. And I put Kirk up there because he's always had great stats. The winning hasn't been there, but it hasn't been there with Dak. It hasn't been there. Love won a playoff game last year, but I don't know, man. You just look at Kirk, you look at the situation that he's in. I think he's going to really excel in Atlanta. I think with the Vikings, he was on pace to have like an MVP type season last year. So assuming that he comes back healthy, and it's a lot of projecting, assuming that he stays healthy and the Achilles doesn't affect him this season. And I don't know if you guys already saw, he was out there slinging passes to Kyle Pitts and OTAs today. So then I think the Achilles looks fine. He's out. At least he's out there at this stage in the game, only like 6 months, 7 months removed from Achilles surgery. So I have Kirk at 9. Yes, I'm a Falcons fan. Is that a little biased? Maybe, but I think you look at the what he was on pace to do last year in Minnesota and in that offense. I think Kirk definitely belongs in the top 10 or the top 12. I think his floor is like 12 in this tier. I don't think I could put him lower than 12, but maybe the order would be different. And we'll go to Dak, right? Dak's one of those guys where it's like, man, regular season stats always been awesome, except for that 2022 season where he led the league in interceptions. But last year, awesome the regular season. Then he plays Green Bay at home and they get the doors blown off him. So it's hard to rank a guy like Dak because it's the Cowboys, man. They just never win in the playoffs. They never win when it matters. So it's really hard to rank a guy like Dak. I put him at 10 because not a lot of these other guys have really won at any level too. So I have Dak at 10. Maybe that's too high. I think it might be. Now that I'm kind of thinking through it, I kind of want to put Goff a little higher, but we'll leave it. We'll talk it through. So Dak at 10, and then we have Aaron Rodgers at number 11. Now this is a lot higher than I think a lot of lists may have him. I'm just assuming that he's going to come out and be the same. If he's the same, we just haven't seen it in a while, which is why I think people are down on him. But he has the weapons in this offense to succeed. A revamped O-line, a true number 1 alpha in Garrett Wilson, a true workhorse running back in Breece Hall to really take the pressure off him. They've always played kind of slow, and I think he's like a Hall of Fame. I don't want to call him a game manager, but they play at a slower pace, which would imply that he's just a really good quarterback, man. Let's just leave it there. Let's just call it like it is. Like he can go win you a game, but he can also kind of not be like they're not going to throw the ball a ton. I think this is going to be a very balanced attack in New York, but he's like the best person at the helm to kind of lead that attack. Great play action fakes. We know that. Great in the play action game. Just immensely talented in terms of what he can do on the run, outside the pocket. In terms of throwing the ball, extending plays, not so much using his legs to pick up yardage, but we'll see how that plays out this year. But I just think Aaron Rodgers, even if we can just get the 2022 version of him, I think Aaron Rodgers is still really, really good. He's only 3 years removed from an MVP. Like he is still, I think, one of the guys we need to be talking about. And I just couldn't put him over Jordan Love. Jordan Love's had one season. Granted, he's probably like the weapons he had in Green Bay and what he did this season was spectacular. They go in, they almost knock off the 49ers at their place in the rain, pretty much like one drive away from doing it. So I think you have to show some respect to Jordan Love, and I feel like I've done that by putting him at 12 on this list. I just couldn't quite put Aaron Rodgers below Jordan Love. So I have Jordan Love at 12. It's really close. I'd be very open to hearing other arguments for that. And let's just move on to Jared Goff. Now, Jared Goff, does he deserve to be higher on this list? Maybe. He's been to a Super Bowl with the Rams. Like you like it or not, like he went to that Super Bowl. He didn't do that great in the Super Bowl. I think they would put up 9 points, something like that. I don't even think they scored a touchdown, but he went to the NFC Championship game this year, a half away from going to another Super Bowl in Detroit, which would have been unbelievable. I think you can make the case that you could have Jared Goff as high as, I think, 8 or 9. Truly. He just got paid $50 million a year. 80% of that contract is guaranteed. Like, he got paid. And they're talking about Trevor Lawrence getting Jared Goff money. And I think everyone would concede the fact that Trevor Lawrence probably a better talent, but Jared Goff's been a better quarterback. And while T-Law's been in the league, Jared Goff has probably outperformed guys like Jordan Love, like Aaron Rodgers, maybe even Dak Prescott. This is like these guys have all had really good stats the past couple of years, so I don't know why it's hard to kind of put Jared Goff in that tier. But it's always, I don't know, man. It just feels like fluky with Jared Goff. People were in outrage. So I have him at 13. Some people I think would even say that's too high, but I think I almost want to move him up. I think I might want to move him up to like 11 or 12. I might have to put him over 11 Rodgers. I know what? We're going to do it on the fly right now. We are going to do it on the fly. We're going to put Jared Goff at 11 because I think he deserves it. Okay, there we go. So that brings us to Kyler Murray. Now, Kyler Murray is a very controversial just player in general. Like Kyler Murray, man, is he's like a human joystick. I run the tweets for a player profile. So whenever you see Kyler Murray, like the players on there, I always put the joystick next to him because of the gaming thing. And he kind of just is a human joystick kind of thing. So it's kind of a double entendre there. But Kyler Murray, like when this guy's on, he's unbelievable, man. Like give him some weapons. Look what he did in Arizona when he had D-Hop there, when he had Rondale Moore was really on, Christian Kirk, like when he had all those guys and James Conner and like never had a really good O-line, like Cliff Kingsbury was there calling plays. Kyler Murray was like an MVP candidate, I remember, for a couple, maybe like that one season where the Cardinals like 9-1 kind of fell off after like the back eight games of the season. But I think Kyler Murray is a awesome quarterback. I'm just a huge Kyler Murray defender. I think he's going to prove a lot of people wrong this year. Second year in this system. I think Drew Penzig, the OC down in Arizona, is really going to unlock the most out of Kyler Murray. You have Marvin Harrison there now. You have Zay Jones, Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson. You drafted a running back. You invested in the O-line. I think this could be a year where we're looking at like, how do we not have Kyler Murray higher and just what we thought of him in overall quarterbacks, and like maybe just in dynasty too, if we want to relate it back to fantasy football. I think Kyler Murray can just be one of those guys. Like, how do we forget that Kyler Murray was this good? Like, he's always been. You look at the stats, I think in average points per game, he's never been outside of the top 12 quarterbacks in average points per game. So I really like Kyler Murray. I'm higher on him than most, which is why I have him at 14 on my list. Now going down to Trevor Lawrence, immensely talented, has had some big games, some really good stretches, but he's never really been able to really put it all together. Obviously, they have the comeback against the Chargers, and that's kind of been the staple of his career. But I mean, they were down in that game. Obviously, they come back, so it looks good for Trevor. But I don't know, just they didn't make the playoffs last year. In my defense, is just inexcusable. They had everybody, like the offense was like, they should have been great last year. They had ETN, who stayed healthy for pretty much the entire season, right? They had Evan Ingram, they had Calvin Ridley, they had Christian Kirk, who actually got hurt toward the end of the season, but their problems had kind of stemmed back even to like week 7 after the bye. They were just a terrible team, and they let the Texans catch them in the division. So I just think Trevor Lawrence, like we just need to see more before I can put him over a guy like Kyler, who at least has had really good stretches and been in the postseason and not really made any noise in the postseason. But I don't know. I'm just a Kyler Murray guy. Okay, leave me alone. So Trevor Lawrence, I just want to see a little more before I move him higher in this list. Now we have Tua. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of a Tua hater. Like he was awful before Mike McDaniel got there, and now Mike McDaniel's kind of saved somewhat of his image, considering like he's not a total bust of like he was projected to pretty much be a total bust before Mike McDaniel got there. It just wasn't looking good when Brian Flores was the head coach. Mike McDaniel gets there, it kind of saves his career a little bit because Mike McDaniel, I mean, that he's got to be like the best offensive system to play in. I mean, that guy's a offensive guru genius. Like, he's gonna get guys open for you. All you have to do is get them the ball, just make open throws is pretty much all you have to do when in a Mike McDaniel offense. So I think Tua has benefited from that. We've seen what he's done in big games. It feels like every single big game, whether it be the playoffs, whether it be the regular season, to secure a bye or to secure the division number 1 spot, right? It just feels like he always comes up short. And I think there's something to that. So I have Tua at 16 and Baker Mayfield right below that. Great year for Baker, but it's only been one great year, so I don't want to overreact too much. I think Dave Canales is a huge part of that. I'm a huge Dave Canales guy in terms of what he can do for an offense. And I just think I want to see what Baker, looks like this year without Canales, as he's in Carolina now. So that'll be interesting to see as well. Now, before we get to our next tier of guys, I said just the average starter tier, we're going to listen to an ad from the Podfather about the Breakout Finder. So we'll be right back after the Podfather.
Oh, hey, it's Mr. Breakout Finder coming at you. The Breakout Finder features 3 key tools: a database of metrics that include speed score, college dominator, breakout age, but also Breakout Finder only stats like dynamic score, level of competition, teammate score. All of these things are part of the overall Breakout Finder algorithm that pinpoints the probability that a player will break out. Everyone's talking about my model does this and my model does that. Well, we give you the data points that go into the model. We have a feature that lets you compare players, and then we give you the precise probability of every wide receiver, every running back, sorted and filterable by class year. So when I'm talking to my friends and I need to show them why I'm so bullish on Player X, I pull out the Breakout Finder and bam, there he is. So go to the App Store, go to Google Play. It's $5 to get the Breakout Finder, and then a couple extra bucks to get some of these additional enhanced stats. Go download it and thank me later.
All right, we are back with the quarterback rankings. My name's Tyler at PPR Tyler on Twitter, and we are going to break down the average starter tier now. So 18 through 24. Again, no rookies on this list, just simply because they haven't played a snap. So I'm not going to put any rookies on the list. They're kind of just in their own tier down at the bottom. You'll see on the when we get to the Dairy Queen tier, because that's where some of those guys should be working. Not just joking, obviously, unless. All right, Geno Smith at 18, my 18th quarterback on this list. Kind of the Dave Canales thing again that we just talked about with Baker, where like he had a really good season, kind of struggled this season at times. That could be due to the Pete Carroll offense, could be due to Dave Canales what's the guy, the OC from Seattle, what's his name? The guy that's in Chicago now. Why am I blanking on his name? Oh God, okay, whatever. Just some people, Shane Waldron. Some people have kind of mentioned that could be a fact why Geno didn't play as well this year, why Seattle was so bad. Not really. They're just average when they have all those weapons. And then on that defense, I feel like Seattle kind of underwhelmed expectations last year. So Geno Smith at 18, don't think he's going to be ever a franchise guy. I don't think he gets another contract after the one he's on. Just kind of feels like a lesser version of like the guys in this tier, right? Like a lesser version of Trevor, like Tua, like Baker, like flashes at times, but really probably isn't like a guy you want to build your team around, especially with the age he's at in his career. He's a good play. He's an average starter, right? This is the average starter tier. So I like him there. So then we got Deshaun at 19. I mean, I feel like Deshaun's had every opportunity to kind of capture what he had in Houston, just hasn't been able to do it in Cleveland yet. Now, could he be a riser and maybe jump up a tier this season if he has a good year? Yes, he could. But if he doesn't do it this year, like it's just, when is it going to happen? It's probably never going to happen for Deshaun. Guaranteed the biggest contract in NFL history, most guaranteed money ever given out to a quarterback, all that stuff when he signed. So he has a lot of expectations, just given the contract, given the situation. He's really got to perform this for him to vault up this list and really not to fall. Because if he has a bad year this year, I mean, watch out. People are going to be calling for Jameis Winston in like week 15 if the Browns are absolutely awful. So let's move on to Russell Wilson, just an enigma, right? I think now one thing with Russell Wilson is he actually played decent last year. The narrative around him was that he played bad, but if you looked at the stats, like he was actually decent last year, which is why I have him as average starter and not in that Dairy Queen tier, because he did play good last year. They just wanted to it wasn't good enough for Sean Payton. I think him and Sean Payton just butted heads. I think he could really have a career resurgence in Pittsburgh. We've seen Arthur Smith turn around, kind of for really good core, like Ryan Tannehill, highly touted and coming out of A&M, went to the Dolphins, was kind of good. Then I feel like he flamed out of the league, goes with Arthur Smith and really fix it around. I think the Pittsburgh offense with Arthur Smith really plays to Russell Wilson's strengths, right? A lot of play action, a lot of deep shots, taking shots down the field, hitting guys in rhythm. I think it's a lot. That's kind of more his game, not the nuanced, West Coast offense that Sean Payton wanted to run in Denver. So I think we could see a nice year from Russell Wilson. And then next we have Anthony Richardson. I almost included Richardson in the rookie tier because we just haven't seen him play that much, but then he's not really a rookie. So I just put him in the average starter tier. He could be 100% a guy that vaults up into that next tier of players, but we obviously have to see it before we project that. So he doesn't, I just don't know where to put him. So I put him in this tier at 21. He obviously has a lot higher ceiling than Russ, than Watson, than Geno, but we really have to see him kind of excel as a passer and being in that Shane Steichen offense. I think that's something he can 100% do. So just didn't know where to put him in this tier. And yeah, Derek Carr, I mean, pretty much this should have just been named the Derek Carr tier because these are just Derek Carr players, guys who, they're going to be around for a little bit. You're probably never going to win with them. They might have a couple good games here and there, but Derek Carr is probably never winning a Super Bowl. Like, let's just call it like it is. He's probably never winning a Super Bowl or like even sniffing anything close to a Super Bowl, right? And never did in Las Vegas. He's not going to do it in New Orleans. Just, he's Derek Carr. He's as mediocre average as it gets. It's Derek Carr. We got Bryce Young. Now, I think Bryce Young could be good this year. I'm high on Bryce Young, but until we see it, I think he's in the average starter tier. Because I'm high on Bryce Young, I don't have him in the tier below this one, so I have him as an average starter, 23. I think you can even say that's probably high. I'm probably higher on Bryce Young, but I mean, we still haven't seen. It's been 1 year, right? Kind of like Richardson, where we did see Bryce Young play most of the games last year, unlike Richardson. But I think Bryce Young, I think he's got some juice left in the thing. I think he could surprise people this year, being in an actual offense, having actual weapons, not having Frank Reich as his coach and all that. It's just, I think Bryce Young could have a good year. So let's move to Will Levis. Kind of the same thing. Not as Bryce Young when we're talking about Will Levis, but still has some of those tools where he was locked to be a top 5 pick and then he falls out of the first round. So we'll have to see. I mean, Will Levis is in the perfect situation where if he's going to be the guy, he has everything he needs. He has the O-line investment that Tennessee has gone out in free agency and in the draft. They really invested in that O-line. They go out and they sign Calvin Ridley. They trade for DeAndre Hopkins last year. They signed Tony Pollard. They have Tajay Spears, who's a running back I really like. Will Levis has all the pieces to prove that he can be a good starting quarterback in the league. If it doesn't happen this year for him, I mean, they have to move on from him. But we will get a very fair evaluation of Will Levis most likely in 2024. Now let's move on to our last tier. Is the Dairy Queen tier. Just the guys, like these guys, I'd be shocked if these guys are all on if these guys are ever in I'd probably say the playoffs or like they're probably not getting contracts after the one they have, at least not big ones. Like they're I think going to end up being journeyman guys, right? Sam Darnold already been a journeyman guy. Now I think he could be fine in the Vikings offense this year. I think Kevin O'Connell is running a really good. He knows what he's doing down there in Minnesota, and I think Darnold could have a decent year, but he's a bridge starter, right? He's a bridge starter. Daniel Jones it just feels like it's not going to work out for him in New York. He's probably going to be off that team in a year or two. Like he's not re-signing in New York ever. Like that's just like at least with a guy like Will Levis, you could see him re-signing, right? Bryce Young, you could see him re-signing. Russell Wilson could win the job in Pittsburgh and really just have a good year. Then he just stays there, right? Like there's some guys I think you could see being on the team that they're on right now for the 3 years down the line. Daniel Jones is not one of those guys. Sam Darnold's not going to be on the Vikings for the next 3 years down the line. Gardner Minshew, like we know what he is. Like he's a bridge starter, right? Jacoby Brissett, we know what he is. So that's these bottom of the barrel kind of starting quarterbacks. And yeah, that concludes the starting quarterbacks. And then we obviously have the rookies. Just don't want to rank them. These aren't in order. Don't have May, Nix, and JJ ahead of Caleb, but these I just listed them down here. If I'm ranking them, if I had to just rank the rookies of who I think will have the best seasons, I would put Caleb 1. I would put Drake May 2, Jaden Daniels 3, Penix 4, JJ 5, Nick 6. I think Penix ends up being better than JJ only because now I'm a Falcons fan, but hear me out. We heard all the reports that teams wanted to trade into the top 10 and grab Penix. Seattle was trying to trade in. New Orleans was trying to trade in. And what was the last team? The Raiders were trying to trade in to grab Penix. None of them wanted to grab JJ McCarthy. I think that's for a reason. No one was really in the McCarthy sweepstakes, it sounds like. So I think the NFL actually did view Penix higher than they viewed JJ, even though it didn't really seem like that on draft night, which is why it was a big shock when Atlanta took Penix. But that concludes today's Player Profiler today. We'll see you next Monday. And again, thanks for hanging out. Make sure you drop a like on the video, drop a comment after the video concludes, and make sure you drop a sub button on the Player Profiler News YouTube channel. We will see you next week. Everyone have a fantastic rest of your night.